Alright, what's up guys? In today's video, we will be discussing the best lifting routine for beginners in 2026. Alright, now this lifting routine is primarily for people who want to build muscle and get jacked and get strong. So pretty much people who want to get into bodybuilding, and I'm using the term bodybuilding loosely. When I say bodybuilding, I just mean building muscle, okay? I'm not saying you want to get on the stage, you want to get stage ready, but this is for people who are beginners and actually want to do the things in the gym that will lead them to a nice, well developed, well rounded physique. Now, the good thing about this is that what we're going to discuss today will pretty much leave you with the tools necessary to do what it takes to get a nice physique. All right. And some credibility about me. I have videos on the channel, but I've been bodybuilding for about 8 years. I'm also a runner and a cyclist. Been doing those for a very long time. Been running and bodybuilding for about 8 years. I got jacked. I went from 140 9.9% body fat to 165 9.9% body fat in about 16 months. So I've been doing this for a very long time, and I have a lot of wisdom to share. And here we go. All right, step one. What you wanna do is you wanna find a workout routine online that targets every muscle group. Now this is very important. You wanna find a workout routine online that targets every muscle group, and the reason you wanna do this is because a lot of beginners they get routines, but the routines don't target every muscle group. All right, like for a lot of beginners, for example, they might neglect they might not train traps, right, or they might not train rear delts, or they might not train every head of the tricep. So you want to go online and you want to find a bodybuilding routine. You want to make sure that that routine targets every single muscle. And here's what I mean by every single muscle. All right, you want to hit your chest. And when I talk about chest, I'm talking about your normal chest exercises, but you also want to do exercises that target the upper chest. A lot of beginners don't do enough exercises that target the upper chest. So you want to do the upper chest in order to have a full, well-rounded chest, okay? Because a lot of beginners and even intermediate people don't have an upper chest, and that's because they neglected to train upper chest when they first started, okay? Number two, triceps. You want to train your triceps. When you're training triceps, you want to make sure you're hitting all three heads. You know, a lot of people, they only do, when they're training triceps, they only hit two out of the three heads, which prevents your arm from being as strong as it could be. It causes imbalances in strength when you're doing compound lifts. And it just kind of leaves you with an underdeveloped arm, and you want to get as big as possible, right? In order to do that, you have to train all three heads of the triceps. So when you're doing triceps, make sure you're following a routine that has all three heads, that targets all three heads of the tricep. All right. Next, we have shoulders. Now, shoulders are pretty self-explanatory. There's a front head, side head, and rear head. The rear delt, the back part of your shoulder is often the one that beginners and intermediates neglect to train, and that's because they, for the most part, just don't know any better. But there's plenty of exercises you can do to train your rear delts. So when you're doing a shoulder routine, make sure you're targeting all three heads. And just so you guys know, most shoulder exercises that you guys do will target the side of your shoulder and the back of your shoulder, but not the front of your shoulder. Um, the front of your shoulders get developed pretty well when you're doing chest exercises and even some tricep exercises to a degree. So I would highly avoid you guys doing any shoulder exercises that targets the front shoulder, that isolates the front shoulder, because this is the front of your shoulder. It's very easy to impinge when you're doing isolation movements, like upright rows like this. I would avoid these, and I would avoid front dumbbell lateral raises. They're very easy to impinge your shoulder and get injured. Take it from me, I've been doing this for 8 years. I stopped doing them 6 or 7 years ago because I kept getting injured. To avoid doing those exercises, when you're training biceps, you want to hit both heads of the biceps, okay? Um, so just follow a routine that hits both heads of the biceps. Forearms. Now, most people, especially beginners, neglect to train forearms. Now, I will say your forearms get trained a lot when you're doing other exercises. But if you want to have a well-rounded, well-developed physique, you need to train forearms directly, okay? And that includes the front of your forearm and the back of your forearm. There's plenty of exercises to do to develop both of these. Head to the forearm, just find a routine online that targets them. All right, you want to train your legs. So when most people think of legs, they just think of quads and hamstrings. All right, but in reality, your legs consist of your quads, your hamstring, your hips, your abductors and your adductors, so both sides of the hips. You want to train your glutes and your calves. All right, again, this is about bodybuilding. This is about developing a well-rounded physique that has no flaws. If you want to develop a well-rounded physique that has no flaws, You want to train your hips, you want to train your glutes, you want to train your claps. You have to train all of these exercises, okay? So you have no shortcomings and no weaknesses. If you want to get as big as possible, as quickly as possible in 2026, you can't have any shortcomings. You have to train all of these, okay? You can't just go to the gym, hit a couple quad exercises, hit a couple hamstring exercises, and call it a day. No, you need to train your hips, you need to train your glutes, you need to train your claps. If you're training your hips and your glutes, it's going to carry over to your compound lifts, such as your barbell squats and your barbell Romanian deadlifts. Okay, traps are your upper back, the muscle beneath your neck. Beginners often, even intermediates, often don't train traps for whatever reason. But your traps play a. You need to train traps so they don't get underdeveloped with respect to your other muscles. So you have a well-rounded physique. And if you have underdeveloped traps, it'll cause problems later on in your training when you're doing bench press and when you're doing deadlifts, because they are utilized during both those compound lifts. But again, you want to have a well-rounded physique with no errors. Train traps. Now your lats. Your lats are very important. Your lats are the muscle in your back. You also want to learn how to properly contract those when you train them, but we'll get into that later. When you're doing lats, you just want to make sure you're doing some horizontal movements, all right, and some vertical movements, okay. To get vertical movements, they make your back wider for the most part, and horizontal movements, they make your back thicker for the most part, okay. So make sure you're doing both horizontal and vertical movements for lats, all right. Number two, you want to train every muscle one time a week for 6 to 12 months. Okay, so a good, you guys don't have to follow this routine, but here's a good 4 day per week routine that targets each and every muscle. You could do something like shoulders, traps, forearms on Monday. You could do lats and biceps on Tuesday. You could do chest and triceps on Wednesday and legs on Thursday. It doesn't have to be all 4 days in a row. You can split it up each any way you want to, but that's a good 4 day routine I recommend that targets each and every muscle group. Okay. All right. Now, this is where a lot of people go wrong, but if you master this, you will get jacked very, very quickly, relatively speaking, right? Like you can transform, you'll look unnoticeable. You'll be a completely different person in like 1 to 1.5 years if you do this, okay? Master how to properly contract every muscle, okay? So basically, what I'm referring to is mind muscle connection. Mind muscle connection is something bodybuilders live by. And mind muscle connection is your mind's ability to properly contract the muscle you're training at any specific given time. Okay. So technically, when you're doing any exercise, it's effectively impossible to isolate that muscle entirely. Okay. So let's say you're doing like a V grip tricep pushdown. Okay. That's an exercise for tricep. However, you're using your lats a little, excuse me, you're using your shoulders are getting incorporated during that movement, no matter how perfectly you're doing it, and your lats are getting incorporated for stability. Okay, but with mind muscle connection, you want to be able to feel or contract rather that muscle so effectively it feels like it's effectively the only muscle that you're training. Okay, so like technically, you could do an exercise like that, like a tricep pushdown, and technically your shoulder's getting used, but you want to minimize the amount of shoulder engagement you have, because the purpose of doing specific exercise is to get a stronger in that exercise, stronger in that movement, and b, you want to make that muscle bigger and stronger specifically, right? Because if you want to get bigger shoulders, I can think of 5 other exercises off the top of my head that'll give you bigger, stronger shoulders. Okay, so you need to learn how to properly contract every muscle. All right, and I want to give a huge emphasis to your lats for beginners, especially for myself and in observations I made in others. Learning how to properly contract your lats is very difficult, and it takes a lot of time and effort. But if you learn how to do it, you will get a very big back in no time. See, a lot of people, especially beginners, intermediates, they have very underdeveloped lats with respect to the rest of your physique, and it can cause injuries because you'll have an imbalance, and b, it just looks really weird not having like lats. Okay, so you want to train back, or you want to rather learn how to properly contract your lats. They're the hardest muscle to contract, but if you learn how to contract them, especially if you learn how to contract them early on, your physique will be very, very well developed. Okay, like for example, I didn't learn how to properly contract my lats until about 10 months in to bodybuilding. I would have been substantially bigger had I learned faster, but it is what it is. I had no one to teach me, but that's why you guys are watching this video. You have someone to share their wisdom and insight from the mistakes they've made to give to you. Okay, so learn how to properly contract your lats. So how do you learn how to properly contract your muscles? Well, what you want to do is, what I recommend doing is watching technique videos on YouTube that teach you how to properly do or properly contract specific muscles, okay, during specific exercises. And I specifically suggest watching videos from professional bodybuilders. And here's why. Professional bodybuilders, their job is to literally be as big as possible. So these guys are the best guys on the planet as far as seeking advice from, because it's literally their job to get muscles that are as big as possible. So these guys have literally mastered muscle building and how to get big muscles. All right. So when they tell you how to do something, or when they suggest how to do something, try that and see if it works. Okay. Every piece of advice may not work for you, but you can assemble bits and pieces of advice from every video, and you can kind of aggregate it into one until you finally figure out what works best for you. Okay. So watch technique videos from professional bodybuilders. You might see, and another thing, this is kind of an aside, but it's very important. You might see people on comment sections of Instagram videos, TikTok videos, YouTube videos talk about, oh, how that lift was a half rep, or how that lift wasn't good form because there wasn't enough depth. Well, I could talk a lot about this, but I'll say this. Um, whenever bodybuilders train, they're training with perfect form. They're properly contracting the muscle. When every rep a bodybuilder does is done with intention, and the intention is A, to get bigger muscles, and B, to get stronger. Okay, so someone who's naive, for example, might say, in order to properly do a dumbbell shoulder press, you need to go all the way down with your dumbbells. Okay, but if you do this, you're going to get injured. This right here is just as much of a full rep as this right here. Although I would encourage no one to do a rep like this, because you're going to impinge your shoulder, you're going to tear something, especially your labrum. All right, take it from someone, especially myself, who's had his share of injuries. Just because someone says something is half rep does not make it a half rep. So watch videos and techniques from professional bodybuilders. All that matters is that you're fully contracting the muscle you're trying to train, okay? Right? Like, you don't have to lock out. Like, locking out isn't a full rep, because you're taking tension off of certain muscles, right? Like when you do a dumbbell shoulder press and you lock out, you're taking tension off of your shoulders. Your shoulders are no longer doing any work. I can lock out and hold 100-pound dumbbells for a long time. But if I add like a 1 degree little bend, I cannot hold this for a long time because my shoulders are incorporated. So this stuff is very, very important. Don't be fooled by naive people in comment sections. But moving on, step 3. Now, I recommend beginners to do strong lifts 5x5 for compounds. Strong lift 5x5 is pretty much a beginner to intermediate weightlifting program to build strength. And you want to specifically use these for your compound lifts. I'm specifically referring to your bench press, barbell bench press, barbell squat, and barbell deadlift. You can also use it for trap bar deadlift. There's strong lift exercises for other stuff like barbell row, but I primarily recommend it for barbell bench, barbell squat, barbell deadlift. And here's why. It is a very good and a very effective routine for beginners to gain strength on those compound lifts, okay? So while you are bodybuilding, you still want to get stronger, and one of the most effective ways to ensure that you get stronger on all lifts is A, by doing everything I told you here, but A, also getting stronger on your compounds, okay? And strong lifts 5x5 is a very effective um, routine for beginners to build strength. Okay, like your strength, as long as you're eating and getting enough sleep and drinking enough water, will blow up if you follow a program like this. All right, so strong lifts 5x5. Just go to Google, search 5 lifts, strong lifts 5x5, and the information, you can download the template, and it's super easy to use. Strong lifts 5x5 for compounds. So when you're doing your routine, let's say you're doing chest, you're doing bench press, you would do strong lifts 5x5 for bench press, and then you would go do all of your other accessory work. And when I say accessory work, I mean anything that's not a compound lift, okay? So when you're lifting, you have main lifts and you have accessories. Your main lifts are your compound lifts, okay? That can be a compound lift is anything that trains multiple muscle groups, like a barbell bench, a dumbbell bench, and your accessories are anything that just isolates that specific muscle, like a chest fly, tricep push down, side lateral raises, etc. Okay, so strong lifts 5x5 for compounds, accessories for the other muscles. Number 4, once you learn how to properly contract every single muscle, and this will take anywhere from 6 to 12 months. maybe faster depending on your intelligence and your genetics. But once you learn how to properly contract every muscle, you can elevate to training every muscle 2 times per week. And there's a lot of reasons for this. According to literature and something I've noticed in myself and others, training muscles 2 times a week is optimal for gains. Okay, that's what the literature says. It's what I'm saying for personal anecdotal experience, which I think is more important, and it's something even more importantly that I've observed others agree with. So once you learn how to properly contract every muscle, train every muscle 2 times per week. So you can do something like push pull legs heavy, push pull leg volume or high volume. All right. So a push day would be like chest, shoulders, and tricep. Any muscle that utilizes um, any muscle that utilizes push, any muscle that requires you to push. So chest, shoulders, triceps. Pull, any muscles that require you to pull weight. Lats, traps, biceps, and then legs, any exercise that requires your legs, all right? I recommend doing heavy, so like 3 to 8 reps. These days you'll be focusing on building strength, okay? And the high volume days you'll be focused on hypertrophy, which means building muscle, okay? On old school bodybuilding stuff, you're gonna use you're gonna use lower weight but higher volumes. You can incorporate drop sets, you can incorporate supersets, but the volume will be higher. I recommend anywhere from 8 to 12 reps when you're training for high volume, and then once you get to about 3 by 12, you can increase the weight by 5 pounds or whatever. Of course, if you're a beginner, you can increase weight faster. But once you get more advanced, progress takes a lot longer. But that is all I have for you guys today. This is the best lifting routine for beginners in 2026. It's how I got jacked. It's how other people I know got jacked. So you literally just have to follow this. If you just follow all this advice, you can transform your physique in a matter of time. I went from a 140-pound distance runner, and then 9 months later, I came back to college my senior year, and everyone was like, "Oh, dude, you got jacked." And that's what happens if you follow these steps. And if you guys are interested, I offer one-on-one coaching. The link is in the bio. The link is in the bio. How to get jacked, how to build muscle, how to bodybuild and run concurrently, how to get shredded. If you're interested, the link's in the bio. And if you guys like the video, leave a like and subscribe. And I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.